The hum of the Etheria Dynamics control room was, for Dr. Eris Thorne, the very rhythm of his existence. It wasn't just a sound, it was the whispered language of purpose, a symphony composed of blinking lights, soft whirs, and the distant murmur of data streams. At 58, his fingers, calloused from years of intricate console work, traced the vast orbital display, a shimmering tapestry where Earth's serene blue mingled with the silent, watchful points of light that were his satellites. For 25 years, since Etheria was little more than a dream, fueled by late-night coffee and audacious equations, he had been the chief orbital systems engineer. His life was etched into the very fabric of this company, woven into the complex dance of their Gaia Sentinel network, a constellation of climate monitoring satellites, Etheria's crowning achievement, silently safeguarding the planet. Each flicker on the screen was a heartbeat, each data point a breath. Lately, however, a discordant note had crept into the symphony. A shadow, not of a passing cloud, but of a presence as jarring as a sudden vacuum. Vivian Sterling, Etheria's newly appointed CEO, materialized beside him, her smile a practiced, almost predatory curve, as cold as the vacuum of space itself. "Dr. Thorne," she purred, her voice devoid of genuine warmth, "we appreciate your foundational contributions. However, the board has decided to implement a more agile approach to orbital management. We're calling it Project Zenith." Behind her, Leo Hayes, the new head of data streamlining, nodded vigorously, his eyes fixed on his sleek, minimalist tablet. He was barely 30, fresh from a Silicon Valley data analytics firm, brimming with theories but utterly lacking in practical orbital mechanics. He saw the Gaia Sentinel network as a mere collection of data points, not a living, breathing system, a testament to human ingenuity and painstaking calibration. "Project Zenith," I echoed, my voice a low rumble, my gaze still fixed on the orbital display. A subtle, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the console beneath my fingers. Intriguing. Because unless my instruments deceive me, the primary data feed from Sentinel-7, our lead climate sensor, has just flatlined. Vivian's smile faltered, a flicker of something akin to alarm briefly crossing her face. Leo, startled from his digital reverie, finally looked up, his youthful confidence momentarily shaken. "What are you talking about, Dr. Thorne? All telemetry reports are green. Check the raw feed, Mr. Hayes," I instructed, my voice calm, yet carrying the weight of impending disaster. Not the aggregated dashboard. The direct stream from the orbital telemetry array. Sentinel-7 is experiencing a critical power systems anomaly, and without immediate manual intervention, we lose the satellite and its invaluable data. Vivian's face, usually so composed, drained to a sickly pallor like a fading nebula. "You're bluffing, Thorne. Our systems are fully automated." I turned from the console, my gaze sweeping across the faces of the young engineers I had mentored, the very team Vivian now sought to dismantle. "The automated failsafes are designed for minor fluctuations," I explained, my voice carrying across the hushed control room. "Not for a Class 3 power systems cascade. Only a direct, coded override, manually uploaded via the secure ground link, can stabilize it. And that override requires my unique biometric and algorithmic signature." A quiet, almost imperceptible click echoed in the silence as I placed my security fob on the console, the final, deliberate act of a man who knew precisely what he was doing. Vivian took a step back, her eyes wide with dawning horror. "You wouldn't dare jeopardize the entire network." I walked towards the main exit, the heavy blast doors of the control room looming. "The Global Climate Summit in Geneva starts in 4 hours, I stated, my voice echoing slightly in the sudden silence. "The entire presentation on rising sea levels hinges on Sentinel-7's real-time data, a $100 million research grant. You might want to figure out how to bring that satellite back online before then. Otherwise, it will be quite a difficult conversation." The cold, echoing silence from the control room was my only reply. As the blast doors hissed shut behind me, carrying me down to the underground parking garage beneath Etheria Dynamics' gleaming Houston headquarters, I could already hear the frantic whispers escalating into shouts. My old Ford F-150, a loyal companion through countless late nights under the stars, sat in my usual spot. The very spot Leo Hayes had, just last week, attempted to reassign to his fresh-faced, utterly inexperienced intern, citing executive access privileges. I settled behind the wheel, the quiet hum of the engine a stark, unsettling counterpoint to the impending chaos that would soon engulf the glass tower above. 2:55 p.m. My phone, a relentless harbinger of the storm, began to vibrate, its discordant jingle echoing in the confined space of the garage. I had not merely worked for Etheria Dynamics. I had breathed life into its very reputation for groundbreaking space technology and unwavering reliability. It began 25 years ago, in a cramped, sun-drenched workshop in downtown Houston. There, I meticulously designed and refined the orbital mechanics for our first experimental satellites, transforming abstract physics into tangible instruments of discovery. My father, Dr. Arthur Thorne Sr., Etheria's founder, was the visionary, the one who charmed investors and painted grand pictures of humanity's future among the stars. I was the silent craftsman, the one who orchestrated the intricate dance of propulsion, telemetry, and data integrity, the relentless pursuit of orbital perfection. We were partners then, a family enterprise built not just on ambition, but on unwavering trust and an almost obsessive commitment to enduring quality. The first subtle tremor in that foundation emerged 5 years ago. My father, weary but content, had retired, passing the torch to his hand-picked successor, Vivian Sterling. Vivian, a rising star plucked from the glittering, fast-paced world of venture capital, spoke in endless, hollow pronouncements of disruptive innovation and lean space operations. She saw our robust, meticulously crafted satellite systems not as a testament to resilience, but as an overly complex legacy infrastructure, a relic to be discarded. The warning signs, initially, were whispers. She'd sweep into critical NASA review presentations, utterly unprepared, then interrupt me mid-discussion, suggesting cost-cutting measures that threatened long-standing, ironclad relationships with the very government agencies and international partners who trusted our judgment. She unilaterally dismantled our dedicated orbital diagnostics team, replacing them with an impersonal, AI-driven anomaly detection system that, with infuriating regularity, flagged legitimate, hand-tuned orbital corrections as inefficient, a testament to its blindness, not our precision. But the true shift, the insidious corrosion, began when she brought in Leo Hayes. A young, ambitious MBA, he was ostensibly hired to assist with global network optimization. Yet Leo, with a chilling predictability, spent most of his time shadowing my every move, asking pointed, probing questions about our proprietary orbital algorithms, the intricate backup systems, and the fail-safe protocols that were the very sinews of our constellation's resilience. 2 months ago, I caught Leo attempting to extract data from my encrypted, intensely personal orbital mechanics archives. When confronted, he stammered, claiming Vivian had authorized it for redundancy and future scalability. When I pressed Vivian, her dismissal was swift and dismissive. Standard protocol for a forward-thinking company. Then, last week, the questions began to sharpen. Vivian started asking unsettlingly specific details about my personal biometric authorization key for the orbital drift compensation protocol. She claimed the board, in its infinite wisdom, was concerned about single-point vulnerabilities and demanded multi-factor authentication for all critical functions. I, ever the loyal scientist, told her I'd consider implementing a phased rollout. I should have known then. Should have seen the storm gathering. I should have realized Leo wasn't a helping hand, but a tool for dismantling my very essence within the company. I should have understood that every process I'd refined, every proprietary technique I'd painstakingly developed, was being systematically cataloged, dissected, and prepared for my inevitable, orchestrated departure. But hope, a stubborn, foolish thing, still clung to me. I trusted Etheria. I trusted the enduring legacy my father had poured his life into. My wife, Maria, with the quiet wisdom of years, saw it all. She'd watched me return home, the vibrant passion I once held for my work slowly eroding, replaced by a weary frustration. She listened, patiently, as I recounted meetings where Vivian would casually dismiss my 25 years of hard-won expertise, only to parade my ideas as her own at the next quarterly review. "She's not just undermining you, Eris," Maria had warned me, her voice soft but firm, over a quiet dinner last month. "She's stripping away your value, piece by piece. When she's done, there'll be nothing left but a ghost in the machine, a hollow shell of what you built." 5 minutes left. The call, the one I had known was coming, arrived with chilling punctuality. Vivian Sterling's name, a stark white against the dark screen, flashed on my phone. "Eris, we need to talk." This instant, her voice, usually so composed, held a tremor. "No, we don't," I replied, my own voice a steady anchor in the swirling chaos. "Listen, perhaps I was overly direct in there. The board has been demanding aggressive changes, pushing for transformative leadership. I was trying to protect you, Eris, truly. The familiar lie. A threadbare cloak she'd worn for months. The same threadbare cloak she'd used when she took credit for my groundbreaking work. When she hired Leo behind my back. When she began systematically excluding me from decisions about the very satellite platforms I'd meticulously crafted. The Gaia Sentinel network is initiating orbital drift compensation in 4 minutes, Vivian. Okay, look. What do you want? We can offer you a substantial severance package, an executive consulting role, generous stock options. I almost laughed. A hollow, bitter sound. Just minutes ago, she dismissed me in front of the entire board, as if I were some junior technician caught pilfering spare parts. Now, she was desperate. Now, she wanted to negotiate. I want you to understand something, Vivian, I said, my tone low, deliberate, each word a stone placed carefully. For 25 years, I've dedicated my life to building a reputation for unparalleled orbital precision that made you and Etheria Dynamics incredibly wealthy. I've covered for your operational oversights, fixed the systemic problems you created with your disruptive innovations, and watched you claim credit for work I did with my own hands. I'm not finished. You brought Leo in to systematically learn my job so you could dispose of me. You've been planning this for months, perhaps longer. The only variable you didn't account for was this. 3 minutes. Through the thick concrete walls of the parking garage, I could discern distant shouts, the frantic, almost desperate revving of car engines as people scrambled to escape. Someone, no doubt, was racing to the main control room, foolishly believing they could manually override the compensation sequence. They couldn't. I'd learned years ago to build fail-safes into fail-safes, to protect Etheria's critical orbital processes even from itself. More accurately, from its incompetent leadership. What do you want? Vivian's voice, now truly tinged with genuine panic, cracked through the speaker. A desperate plea. I want you to remember this moment, I said, my voice unwavering. I want you to remember that for 25 years, I was fiercely loyal to Etheria. I believed in this company, believed in what we were building together, and you carelessly threw it all away because you were too afraid of appearing anything less than ruthless in front of your board. 2 minutes. The Geneva Climate Summit presentation is in 58 minutes, I continued, my voice chillingly calm, a quiet pronouncement of doom. $100 million. Research grant. Without Sentinel-7's real-time data, you've got nothing to present, nothing to prove. Without the client database, you don't even have their direct contact information. I could hear muffled voices in the background now, a chorus of rising panic, people shouting instructions, keyboards clicking frantically, uselessly. How? How do I fix this, Eris? Vivian pleaded, her voice barely a whisper. 1 minute. You don't, I said, and with a quiet click, ended the call. I started my F-150, the engine purring a low, satisfied rumble, and slowly drove towards the exit. In 60 seconds, every light in the Etheria Dynamics control room would flicker into darkness. Every console would go silent. Every ground station, every data link, every piece of critical equipment that kept the global enterprise running would grind to a halt. And for the first time in 25 years, Vivian Sterling would have to solve a problem without me. The global satellite network shutdown at Etheria Dynamics lasted precisely 5 hours and 12 minutes. I knew this with an almost detached certainty, for I was comfortably seated in the Nebula Nook, a tranquil bistro overlooking the Houston skyline. There, I savored a late lunch, observing the unfolding chaos on the news channel mounted above the bar. Space tech giant experiences unprecedented orbital blackout, scrolled the urgent banner across the screen, while a visibly flustered reporter stood outside the darkened Etheria headquarters, interviewing bewildered employees who had been summarily sent home. My phone, a relentless digital tormentor, rang incessantly. Vivian, 19 times. Leo, 12. Leo Hayes from Data Streamlining, 3 times. I allowed them all to drift into the void of voicemail. At 4 p.m., the control room lights finally flickered back to life. A faint, tentative glow. I understood the desperate measures. They had no doubt summoned an emergency engineering team, bypassed the orbital drift compensation protocol, and were now painstakingly attempting to restart critical satellite links from scratch. It would be a Sisyphean task, taking them days, perhaps weeks, to restore full functionality and, more critically, to address the gaping data integrity issues I had, by my absence, left exposed. At 4:37 p.m., my phone chimed with a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Thorne, this is attorney Julian Finch, from Finch & Associates. I represent Etheria Dynamics. We need to discuss your highly disruptive actions today. A lawyer, Vivian, predictably, was already activating her legal cavalry. I haven't done anything illegal, Mr. Finch, I stated, my voice calm, unyielding. Sabotage is a federal offense, Mr. Thorne. Intentionally disrupting critical corporate infrastructure, causing massive financial harm to a multinational corporation. The U.S. Attorney's Office might be very interested in your activities. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched my lips. They truly believed they could intimidate me with legal threats. The same worn-out tactic Vivian had employed for months with her veiled threats to my job security. I implemented a standard, board-approved security protocol designed to protect sensitive company data and ensure orbital integrity, I clarified, each word a precise cut. The system worked exactly as intended. If Etheria Dynamics no longer employs qualified personnel to operate their proprietary technology, that's not my problem, Mr. Finch. You deliberately created a situation where you were the only individual who could restore critical global operations, he countered, his voice hardening, a hint of frustration creeping in. I created a situation where the chief orbital systems engineer had to authorize system recalibrations. I was the chief orbital systems engineer until approximately 2:30 p.m. today. The lawyer fell silent for a moment, a pause heavy with his dawning realization. Mr. Thorne, I think you're severely underestimating the gravity of your situation. The Geneva Climate Summit grant, worth $100 million, was irrevocably lost due to your actions. Multiple other high-profile international clients experienced critical service disruptions and data quality issues, resulting in substantial penalties. The cumulative damages could easily reach into the hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions. Vivian, no doubt, had fed him inflated, panic-driven figures, hoping to scare me into immediate, desperate compliance. The Geneva Climate Summit grant was lost because Vivian Sterling fired her chief orbital systems engineer 10 minutes before a critical presentation, I asserted, my voice unwavering. Poor management decisions and a blatant lack of foresight are not my responsibility, Mr. Finch. We have compelling documentation showing you created unauthorized access restrictions, implemented shutdown protocols without official board approval, and deliberately withheld crucial information necessary for continued global business operations. Now, the full picture emerged. They weren't merely threatening me with criminal charges. They were meticulously building a civil case, a calculated attempt to claim I'd maliciously sabotaged the company. Vivian intended to sue me for damages, to strip me of everything I owned, to financially ruin me so completely that I could never again pose a competitive threat. Document this, Mr. Finch, I said, my voice laced with steel, a quiet promise. Any legal action taken against me will result in full, public disclosure of all Etheria Dynamics orbital vulnerabilities. Every bypass safety protocol, every compromised data link, every reckless shortcut Vivian and Leo approved against my vehement recommendations. Let's see how many government agencies, how many research institutions, want to work with a company whose former chief orbital systems engineer testifies under oath that their cutting-edge satellites are fundamentally flawed, negligently designed, and ripe for catastrophic orbital failures. The line went quiet, the silence a testament to his shock. You're threatening to reveal proprietary information, Mr. Thorne. That's a serious accusation. I'm promising to tell the unvarnished truth about the company's actual orbital capabilities and its leadership's critical failings under oath. If necessary, I corrected him, my resolve unshakable. I hung up, and with a quiet sigh, ordered another cup of coffee. 20 minutes later, Vivian called again. Eris, we need to meet face to face. No lawyers, no board members, just us. Please. This is spiraling out of control. We used to be colleagues. Perhaps there's a way to resolve this that works for everyone involved. I considered her plea. Vivian was genuinely scared now, stripped bare of her corporate armor, realizing that hollow legal threats wouldn't make her insurmountable problems vanish. She desperately needed something from me, and for the first time, she was finally ready to negotiate from a position of absolute abject weakness. The Nebula Nook on the Houston skyline, I said. 1 hour. I'll be there. But even as I spoke the words, a quiet certainty settled within me. She wouldn't come alone. Vivian arrived 43 minutes later, Leo Hayes trailing in her wake like a shadow. I watched them through the bistro window, a detached observer. Vivian, a portrait of haggard desperation, paced frantically outside, her movements jerky and uncoordinated. Leo, slumped in the passenger seat of a sleek black sedan I didn't recognize, seemed to shrink further into himself. A company car, no doubt. Another fleeting perk Vivian had authorized for her rapidly diminishing favor with her new preferred employee. They settled across from me in a secluded corner booth, the polished wood reflecting their strained faces. Vivian looked as if she hadn't slept in days, her eyes sunken and bloodshot, betraying the toll of her self-inflicted crisis. Leo avoided all eye contact, his face pale and clammy, the picture of a young man terrified of the precipice he found himself on. The kid was clearly nervous, probably terrified about what his unwitting role in today's chaotic events might cost him. "Coffee?" I offered, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. Vivian shook her head, her movements abrupt. "Let's just get to business, Eris. What's it going to take to make this go away?" Her voice was hoarse, stripped of its usual corporate polish. "Make what go away?" I inquired, feigning innocence. "Don't play games, Eris. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The legal threats, the orbital vulnerabilities, all of it. Name your price." Her desperation was palpable, a bitter perfume in the air. I leaned back into the booth, crossing my arms, a picture of calm authority. "You truly think this is about money, Vivian? Everything's about money, Eris. Always has been. Always will be." That was Vivian Sterling in a nutshell. Her world, reduced to cold hard cash, profit margins, and quarterly reports. She'd never understood that some people worked for reasons far beyond their bank account balance, for the sheer love of creation, for the pursuit of excellence. "Tell me something," I pressed, my voice a quiet, insistent probe. "How long have you been planning to terminate me?" Vivian glanced uneasily at Leo, a flicker of accusation in her eyes, then back at me. "It wasn't personal, Eris, just strategic restructuring. The board's mandate." "How long?" I repeated, my gaze unwavering. 6 months, maybe 8. The board wanted dramatic changes, wanted to bring in younger, more agile talent, reduce operational costs. Leo's salary is 65% of what we were paying you. 8 months. While I was working countless overtime hours, meticulously perfecting the orbital drift compensation protocol for the Gaia Sentinel network, ensuring its flawless integrity, Vivian was already systematically planning my replacement. While I was patiently mentoring Leo, genuinely believing I was training a promising apprentice, he was meticulously studying my craft, not to learn, but to usurp. "Did you ever intend to keep me on as a consultant?" I asked, a final test of her honesty. "Originally, yes," Vivian admitted, avoiding my gaze, her voice barely a whisper. "But then you started asking pointed questions about our new satellite component sourcing, making comments about unacceptable orbital tolerances. The board felt you might become a bottleneck, a liability to our new launch goals. A bottleneck because I insisted on uncompromising orbital precision, on satellites that would function flawlessly for decades, not just quarterly reports. A liability because I dared to question some of Vivian's technically unsound decisions in front of influential clients and board members, prioritizing mission success and scientific rigor over her reckless pursuit of speed and cost-cutting." "Show him the contract," Vivian grunted to Leo, her voice strained. Liam, trembling slightly, pulled a sleek folder from his jacket and slid it across the table. Inside was a consulting agreement, a paltry offering of $100,000 to provide technical transition assistance for 90 days. $100,000? I scoffed, a genuine mirthless laugh escaping me. For 25 years of irreplaceable institutional knowledge, every blueprint of our most complex orbital maneuvers, and my intellectual property? That's what you call a generous offer considering the circumstances? Vivian's face tightened, a mask of fury struggling to contain her desperation. I picked up the contract, its glossy paper feeling flimsy in my hands, and began to read through it. Standard non-disclosure language, restrictive non-compete clauses, and a particularly insidious section requiring me to provide complete, detailed documentation and all-access credentials for all orbital processes and proprietary techniques developed during my employment. They wanted me to hand over everything, every secret algorithm, every unique orbital stabilization method, every intricate calibration I'd built to ensure Etheria's legendary precision. And in exchange, they'd pay me what Vivian probably spent on her weekly penthouse floral arrangements. "There's one rather significant problem with this, Vivian," I stated, closing the folder with a soft, decisive thwack. "What's that?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "You assume I have any desire whatsoever to continue working with you, or for Etheria." Vivian's face hardened, her eyes blazing with a desperate, cornered fury. "Eris, be reasonable. You're unemployed. You're facing potential federal criminal charges, and your reputation in this industry is going to be utterly destroyed when word gets out about today's debacle. This is your chance to walk away with something, anything. My reputation? I smiled, a cold, unyielding smile that reached only my lips. Industrial sabotage isn't exactly a selling point for future employers, is it? Vivian, I continued, leaning forward, my voice resonating with an authority she no longer possessed, a quiet storm gathering. Do you know who called me this morning? She looked genuinely confused, her brow furrowed. What do you mean? At 7:30 a.m., before I even arrived at the Etheria headquarters, I received a phone call from Marcus Vance at Celestia Systems. He wanted to discuss a critical leadership position, their new Chief Orbital Operations Officer. Seems they've been meticulously watching my work for months, particularly impressed with the precision and unique orbital stability I applied to the Gaia Sentinel network. Leo's eyes widened in dawning horror, a silent gasp escaping his lips. Vivian went utterly pale, a sickly green hue washing over her face, as if all the blood had drained from her veins. The job pays twice what you were paying me, I continued, relishing the moment, the words a hammer blow, plus substantial stock options and a very generous signing bonus. You're lying, Vivian stammered, but her voice lacked any conviction, a mere whisper of defiance. I pulled out my phone, its screen, a beacon of truth, and showed her the missed call log. 7 missed calls from Celestia Systems between 7:30 a.m. and 2 p.m., all from Marcus Vance. I paused, letting the information sink in. He called back during your little board meeting, Vivian. Left a voicemail asking if I was interested in discussing immediate opportunities. Funny thing is, he already knew I was leaving Etheria. Said he'd heard rumors that significant management upheavals were imminent regarding our orbital leadership. Vivian's face went utterly white, a ghostly pallor. That's impossible. Is it? I challenged, my gaze piercing. Who's been handling the Geneva Climate Summit negotiations for the past 6 months? Who's been providing them with detailed insights into our satellite capabilities and data integrity issues? The truth, a brutal, undeniable force, hit her like a freight train, visible in the sudden, gut-wrenching realization that contorted her features. Julian Finch, the board member who'd been pushing hardest for operational changes and cost efficiency, was also the former Chief Operations Officer of Celestia Systems' main competitor, Stellar Dynamics. He'd been meticulously feeding crucial, high-level information to Celestia Systems for months, helping them understand exactly what Etheria's true orbital capabilities were, and more importantly, who was truly responsible for them. Julian set this up, Vivian whispered, a tremor of pure terror in her voice. He orchestrated my downfall. He's been subtly recruiting me since January, I confirmed, my gaze steady, unflinching. Discreet conversations at industry summits, casual questions about my satisfaction with current management, subtle hints about better, more aligned opportunities. I turned him down, Vivian, because I thought I owed you loyalty, 25 years of it. Leo was staring at the table, his eyes wide, probably realizing that his brand new job, the one he'd so eagerly snatched, might not be as secure as he'd naively thought. If Celestia Systems, armed with my knowledge, poached Etheria's key technical personnel and acquired its core IP, they could undercut every contract bid and effectively steal the entire client base, leaving Etheria a hollow shell. But today changed my mind, I continued, watching the complete devastating realization dawn in Vivian's eyes, a slow, agonizing burn. When you summarily fired me in front of the entire board, you made it abundantly clear that 25 years of partnership, of unwavering trust, meant absolutely nothing. So, I called Marcus Vance back. Vivian frantically grabbed her phone, her fingers fumbling. I need to call Julian. I need to find out what he's planning. Too late for that. What do you mean? She stammered, her voice a desperate plea. I checked my watch, a theatrical gesture, savoring the moment of pure, unadulterated dread on her face. At 5 p.m. today, Celestia Systems is officially announcing the acquisition of Etheria Dynamics' entire intellectual property portfolio. They've purchased the exclusive rights to our Gaia Sentinel network designs, our proprietary orbital algorithms, and our resilient data transmission protocols. That's impossible. We own those systems. Vivian blustered, a last, futile attempt at defiance, but her voice was weak, defeated. You own the ground stations and the launch contracts. I own the patents and the trade secrets. The silence stretched across the table like an unbridgeable chasm, vast and suffocating. Vivian's mouth opened and closed without a sound, a fish out of water, gasping for air. Leo looked like he might vomit right there in the booth, his face a sickly green. The patents, the trade secrets. Vivian finally managed to croak, her voice barely a whisper. The words, a death rattle. Filed meticulously in my name over the past 5 years, I finished for her. Each word, a nail in the coffin. Every major satellite innovation, every unique orbital maneuver solution, every piece of genuinely innovative space engineering. My lawyer assured me that as the actual inventor and developer, I retained all intellectual property rights and trade secrets, regardless of my employment agreements. It was true. My attorney had advised me years ago to file patents on my major innovations and meticulously document my unique processes, partly for protection and partly for the simple, well-earned pride of creation. I'd never once imagined I'd need them as leverage against my own company. The Gaia Sentinel network designs alone are valued at $15 million in licensing fees, I continued, piling on the agony, each figure a fresh wound. The proprietary orbital algorithms are worth another $25 million. The resilient data transmission protocols, climate analysis methodologies, orbital drift compensation techniques. Celestia Systems estimates the total portfolio value at a staggering $120 million. More than the $100 million grant Vivian had just lost by firing me. More than Etheria Dynamics' entire annual revenue. Enough, in fact, to put her company out of business if a direct competitor controlled this technology. You can't do this, Eris. Vivian's voice was a desperate, raw rasp, a plea lost in the wind. I already did. Signed the exclusive licensing agreement an hour ago. Celestia Systems gets exclusive rights to my patents and trade secrets for 5 years. In exchange, I get a Chief Orbital Operations Officer position, significant equity in their company, and 25% of all licensing revenue. Vivian was staring at me as if I'd suddenly grown a second head, the same expression of bewildered disbelief she'd worn earlier when I told her about the orbital drift compensation. The look of a woman realizing she'd catastrophically miscalculated, that her ruthless ambition had led her to ruin. What happens to Etheria? Leo asked quietly, his voice barely a whisper, tinged with a desperate hope. That depends entirely on Vivian, I said, meeting Leo's gaze squarely, my answer a cold, hard truth. Celestia Systems is willing to negotiate a licensing agreement that would let you continue using my patents and trade secrets for a fee. How much? Vivian managed to choke out, the word barely audible. 60% of gross revenue. The number hung in the air like a death sentence, sealing Etheria Dynamics' inevitable agonizing fate. The bankruptcy filing, when it finally came 8 weeks later, felt less like a shock and more like the inevitable settling of dust after a long, violent storm. I was comfortably seated in my new, spacious office at Celestia Systems' bustling new facility in Seattle, the city lights twinkling outside my panoramic window. I was reviewing intricate deep space probe designs for a major interstellar research initiative in California when my assistant, a bright young woman named Sarah, brought me the news. Etheria Dynamics had filed for Chapter 11 protection, citing unsustainable operational costs and the unforeseen loss of critical intellectual property and trade secrets. The words, though expected, still carried a faint echo of the past. Vivian, predictably, had fought tooth and nail. She'd hired 4 different law firms, each more aggressive than the last, challenging my patent claims in federal court, even attempting to have me arrested for corporate espionage. But truth, unlike ambition, is unyielding. Nothing stuck. The patents were legitimately filed and unequivocally mine. The licensing agreement with Celestia Systems was ironclad, and my departure from Etheria had been entirely her choice, orchestrated by her own short-sighted hand. She'd also tried, with a foolish, desperate bravado, to operate without my patented systems and undocumented techniques. For 3 agonizing weeks, Leo and a hastily assembled team of contractors attempted to rebuild the entire orbital infrastructure from scratch, scrambling to create new methods to replace the sophisticated, patented algorithms and proprietary orbital maneuver processes. The results were catastrophic. Gaia Sentinel network satellites experienced critical orbital drift, data transmission protocols failed, and the final presentation for Etheria's largest client, a major international climate organization in London, went down for 48 grueling hours, causing widespread project delays and massive financial losses throughout their network. The lawsuits, a relentless tide, followed swiftly and mercilessly. The climate organization sued for breach of contract. 3 other key international clients immediately terminated their agreements. Celestia Systems, now armed with my proven, reliable systems and a pristine reputation for genuine innovation, swept in to capture every abandoned contract, establishing itself as the undisputed leader in bespoke space technology. Julian Finch, the former board member who had played his own subtle game, quietly resigned from the Etheria Dynamics board 2 days before the bankruptcy filing. He'd already accepted a lucrative consulting position with Celestia Systems, helping to seamlessly integrate newly acquired assets and strategically transition former Etheria clients to our superior orbital capabilities. His foresight, like mine, had paid off. Leo Hayes lasted precisely 4 months before Vivian, in a final, desperate act of corporate self-preservation, had to let him go. The kid, for all his ambition, simply wasn't qualified for the critical position he'd been hired to fill. And without my patented systems and undocumented techniques to maintain, there wasn't enough specialized technical work to justify his exorbitant salary. He ended up taking a junior analyst job with a small consulting firm in Denver, making barely half what Vivian had so glibly promised him. A harsh lesson learned, no doubt. The final crushing blow came when the bankruptcy court approved the asset sale. Celestia Systems purchased Etheria Dynamics client list, ground station equipment, and the remaining scraps of intellectual property for less than Vivian owed in accumulated legal fees. The company that had taken 25 years to meticulously build, the empire my father and I had painstakingly forged from the ground up, was liquidated in a single, ignominious afternoon. A legacy reduced to a footnote. I didn't attend the auction. There was no need. Instead, I spent that Thursday morning working with my new, brilliant team on a comprehensive, AI-driven asteroid mining feasibility study for a bespoke commission for a renowned aerospace corporation in Los Angeles. This was real work. Intricate scientific and engineering challenges that truly mattered. High-impact projects that would be rightfully credited to the dedicated people who actually designed and implemented them, not to those who merely took credit. Maria met me for lunch at a quaint local eatery near the Celestia Systems facility. She'd been my unwavering support through the entire tumultuous transition, a steadfast beacon in the storm, never questioning my decisions, never once suggesting I should have handled things differently. "Any regrets, my love?" she asked softly over our gourmet sandwiches and local craft beer, her eyes searching mine. I thought about it. Vivian Sterling had systematically destroyed our partnership, betrayed 25 years of unshakable trust, and brazenly tried to steal credit for my life's singular work. But her short-sighted actions had also, ironically, freed me from a stagnant, toxic situation that was slowly but surely extinguishing my passion for the very craft I loved. It was a liberation, albeit a painful one. "None," I said, meeting her eyes, a deep sense of peace settling over me, a quiet triumph. She smiled, her expression warm and knowing. "Good, because Marcus Vance called this morning. He wants to discuss significantly expanding your team here at Celestia Systems. He says they're forecasting unprecedented growth in global demand for your patented solutions and unique orbital engineering expertise. My ideas were truly valued now. My critical contributions were not only recognized, but celebrated, and my name proudly appeared on every new patent application. The generous signing bonus had completely paid off our mortgage, freeing us from that burden. The stock options would comfortably fund our retirement, securing our future. The substantial salary was more than enough to let Maria finally pursue her true passion, writing her science fiction novels full-time, something she'd dreamed about for years, a dream now within reach. The final chapter of Etheria Dynamics, however, was written not in boardrooms or courtrooms, but in the quiet, desolate expanse of space. 6 months after its bankruptcy, a critical power failure on Sentinel-4, one of the few remaining satellites not under Celestia's new management, caused it to tumble uncontrollably. Without Eris's proprietary algorithms and the skilled engineers he had mentored, no one at the skeleton crew of Etheria could stabilize it. The satellite, once a symbol of human ingenuity, became a piece of space junk, a silent, stark monument to a legacy squandered. Its demise, widely reported, served as a chilling cautionary tale in aerospace circles. The true cost of prioritizing agility over irreplaceable expertise. Vivian Sterling, her career in tatters, vanished from the industry's radar, a cautionary whisper in executive circles. Leo Hayes, after a brief, unremarkable stint in a minor tech firm, found himself out of the industry entirely, a casualty of a battle he never truly understood. Julian Finch, ever the pragmatist, continued his consulting work, his reputation enhanced by his timely departure from Etheria's sinking ship. And as for Eris, he found his true north. His name, once synonymous with a single company, now echoed across the cosmos, a testament to the fact that some legacies are too vast, too deeply woven into the fabric of innovation, to ever be truly undone by a single short-sighted decision. His work, his passion, his very essence, continued to reach for the stars, unburdened and unbound.